Hi. At the workplace, we are often confronted with understanding the difference between leaders versus managers. Exactly what identifies one as a leader versus a manager. Now, the clear single argument for this is that a leader is the next level or the next step for a manager, which means that once you have proven yourself as a leader, you move to becoming a manager. Having understood that, today I wanted to cover three key differences between how you would identify someone as a leader versus a manager, and what are also the three key uniquenesses among them. So let's quickly start. First, let us look at the workplace. If you look at the workplace, you could divide all roles into one of these four segments, which is strategy or strategists. These could also be the designers, right? People who are designing the work, designing functions, and so on and so forth. And of course, also designing the organization strategy in different ways and means. The next are the peoplers or the people enablers, which is all roles related to people, which could be, of course, not only supervisory roles but also roles in people processes or human resources. Next are the taskers or the action players, people who are actually right out there performing the actions and, of course, delivering the productivity. The fourth are the thinkers or the influencers. These are people who are basically either at marketing, thinking about how to package and put up the product, or people right at the top who are thinking about how to take the organization forward and hence are thinking about the way forward. These could also be the management team or the so-called leaders. However, here we would also include influencers in the sense of team leaders who are great mentors or who are great influencers for the whole team, right? And try to look at it from that team perspective. So now that we have understood this, let us look at three areas of the team. Now, if you look at managers, most managers can be divided into either dealing with people complexity or dealing with task complexity. Certain managers have very efficient teams underneath them. All they need to do is to ensure that they need to motivate them or influence them, whereas certain teams could be built of people who are very low on motivation or have a very limited yet a very time precise task to execute, and hence their focus needs to be absolutely on the task. Consider a manufacturing entity and you will have the answer. Now that we have understood that people do need to look at one of these functions, what you'll notice is the first key area where we need to focus on is on leadership. That leadership is all about people scaling. Leadership is all about taking people up the ladder. Again, you could find 2 or 3 key reasons for that. One of the primary reasons is that you are all alone at the top. You need to bring people along with you. You need social company. The second reason is, of course, because that is your primary task, and if you do not do that, you are not preparing the next level, and hence you are yourself not being able to give up your chair. So the primary role of a leader is, of course, to hence create new people who would come and take over their positions. The third, of course, is the very fact that if an organization needs to grow, if it needs to outclass itself both in the market and in the space of its talent and its product capabilities, it needs people who can think further than today. So that is the third key reason why I prefer to call leaders as people scalers. The first key difference is of status quo. The job of a manager is to maintain status quo, is to ensure that the existing state of affairs, the processes, the tasks are executed as ordered, as put into process as per the implementation and production schedule, as per the order of the organization. While if you look at the role of the leader, it is to disrupt the status quo, not in the sense to disrupt the task per se, but to find out how the task can be disrupted so that it can be recreated, it can be re-engineered in a better fashion. How do we know that? Let's look deeper into it. Taking a cue from point 1, we can see that the role of the manager is to keep his or her focus on the task. And within the task, you have two elements. You have the element of productivity, which means the task should deliver the right amount of productivity, and it should also follow the right process. Now look at it from the point of the leader. The leader's perspective, however, is to look at it from the perspective of purely the process, right? Why? Because the process will tell us exactly what is the purpose. Do we really need this process? Can we alter the process? Can we look at some other way of executing the whole process, and hence either smartening the process or shortening the process, right? So hence on one end, the leader or the people scaler needs to look at the purpose behind the task, and secondly the resources, because one has to look at how can I optimize resources, how can I optimize for both time and cost within that process so that I can make it smarter or shorter. Now for point number 3, a manager's key role is all about role and responsibility, which means they need to ensure that not only they disciplined, but the whole team under them are following the discipline of the role assigned to them and the responsibilities provided herewith. So again you can see, so from the status quo, maintaining the status quo and hence maintaining their focus on the task and hence on the role and responsibilities assigned. So that kind of tells you exactly why someone has a very, very managerial focus. Whereas for a leader, the focus is less on discipline and more on influence. Where can a leader or a people scaler influence? They can influence people, of course, for the first part, which is the team and the larger organization around them. They can influence actions, which is the various processes or the various strategic intents of the organization. And the third is they can influence ideas. Ideas are all about both strategies and also of influencing new thoughts, bringing in newer ideas to bring in or cultivate new ways of doing things smarter yet shorter. Now that we have understood the scale and difference which makes a manager versus someone who has scaled up and become a leader, let us look at the uniqueness which both these roles hold and what is unique among them, and hence could also be a limitation at times which could stop a manager from transforming into a leader. And hence these are also key points to help you establish and of course coach and motivate people from looking at the narrow prism of managerial influence to a leadership or a people scaling approach. So when we are talking about uniqueness, the first thing to notice would be that a manager holds much more patience compared to a leader. Now this is also very natural because to maintain the status quo, to ensure that things are flowing in the right pattern, they have to take in a lot during the whole work day. Compare that to a leader who has to find out new ways, and hence they would rather love disruption. They would rather love to look at mess to figure out exactly which part of the process, which element or which set of resources could be replaced, could be revoked, because often you don't find problems in processes unless they come out very naturally at the workplace, right? So a manager would have much more patience, a leader would be much more impatient to do new things. A manager would hold on to his or her horses much more steadily. The second area where you can clearly distinguish someone as a manager versus a leader is their strong domain focus. Managers are much more focused on their set of skills because, of course, they come from the status quo, and that status quo involves a particular task, and they are probably highly skilled, or that's the whole reason why they have been hired in the first place. So they are much more in control of the situation, not only because they are patient, but they also have good understanding of the subject matter. Whereas a leader would obviously have good understanding of subject matter, not only probably a single subject matter, but multiple of them. A good leader would, rather than being domain focused or skill focused, will figure out what would lead to growth and bring in much more both revenue and success to the organization. Which means that it is not that the function is important. Anything that leads to success is important, and hence the focus is more on driving growth and success rather than focusing on a particular function and trying to achieve everything based on the capabilities or the limitations and strengths of that particular function. Now, this domain focus of managers and people who keep on talking in their own domain language also would end up having a very high focus on their teams. Now, this focus would be that they would be very strong defenders, they would be very strong influencers or motivators for their own team. Whereas for a people scaler or leader, it is more important to look at the organizational focus and hence not look at one team but pick out the best out of teams, right? So people scalers or leaders would not be only loyal to a particular set of the team but to all teams, because they understand the greater picture, which is that you need all kinds of teams, and as I showed, you need people from strategy, people with people skills, you need people with action skills, and you need people with influencer skills to drive home business, to drive home growth and success for the organization, right? So that distinguishes a leader's special qualities versus a manager's uniqueness. I hope this has been helpful. How do you measure it? Of course, we at Pexitics have tools. I could also help you design particular tools for this. And finally, remember, culture plays a very big role in performance. So do look up my videos and my earlier content on performance and culture. It will surely help you. Do let me know how did you find this discussion, and I hope to bring in much more discussions. Do leave back also areas where you want me to discuss or provide you insights, and it should definitely be helpful for both of us. With this, I thank you for bearing with me till the end, and I wish you a wonderful day ahead.